friends and family! So, starting out the video pretty positively, and I just want to say that I actually played each of these games and had a good time to an amazing time, really, in every single one of them for different parts of its lifespan. I really appreciated these games as art in certain cases, but in the end, I think we can all agree, as games as a service, they kind of fell from grace. These are free MMO that just didn't live up to the hype, or in the end, it kind of just wasn't kept alive. So, just starting out, we're going to be talking about Planetside 2, and this is a game that I champion, and I actually did champion throughout my life to an extent, as I've known the game, of course, throughout years and years. But Planetside 2 it launched with a bang, it was popping, and then it kind of, it really simmered down. Planetside 2 is this epic only PvP. It's so cheesy, sci-fi shooter. It's server versus server versus server in MMO terms. Sometimes that's what it's called, or realm versus realm. But it's three factions. They're all just slapping each other silly, and that's pretty much it. But actually, Planetside 2 has had a resurgence lately. So maybe more so than any other game on this list, Planetside 2 might come back, and it actually has, player base is actually building again. It's not where it used to be exactly, or where it should be, in my opinion, for being technically the most unique MMO on the planet, but I still always recommend it. Even though it's fallen from grace, the fact of its uniquity, uncontested. There's no other game like this. You need to try it, you need to play it. But the reason why people don't stick around, basically, they took too long with updates. The grind might have been felt a little bit harder earlier on, and there wasn't really much incentive to keep playing as a competitive player. Now, though, that has changed. There are actually competitive servers. Now, the community is getting more stuff and more involvement in terms of YouTube videos, trailers, and promotions. A lot of other YouTubers are, spurring on this game like myself. And then also we're just getting new stuff, new vehicles, entirely new, giant air bases and giant tanks and shit. It's crazy. The balancing also is more interactive, so Planetside 2 is actually more alive than it's been in a while, but that's a thing. For so long, it has just been in that fallen state. But, I gotta keep try to keep the hype alive. Planetside 2 is actually still a game that you should try. Even at its worst, still was worth a shot. So what do you think now? Yeah, you're gonna download it, you're gonna play it. But this is a kind of more negative top list, so I should say Planetside 2 being an MMO, the hit registration is a little awkward, it's a little funky. The game also, it looks cheesy, it can look fun, but I think it could look funner and it could look better. It kind of looks a little dated. It doesn't run as good as it should in general in terms of optimization. Then again, for what it is, actually no other game is like it, so it's kind of hard to debate that, honestly. And overall, the balancing and things are maybe too homogenous. It's not as radical as it should be for three different factions. I really want more unique weapons, more unique, maybe even classes, and definitely more unique vehicles, and definitely more incentivization for players to go to certain locations to actually unlock those areas. That would be really great too. This game is definitely one big expansion away from being genuinely an amazing fucking game, but it definitely does need to pass on, I think, audio, visual, just, an overall production update, and also, give us some sweeping changes with some of the classes and things like that. Expand the game, just bump it up one extra level, one tier. Planetside 2 would be amazing. And the awesome thing is, uniquely to this list, is I really think it could happen. I genuinely think this is the game that can go from being a fallen state to actually reclaiming its spot as the king of sci-fi MMO, which there isn't any. It kind of is, other than EVE Online. So, in terms of FPS, it's the best. So, I guess there isn't much incentive to be better. But if it was, then you would get people from other MMO genres coming in and slapping people silly inside of Planetside 2. Number 4, we got Blade and Soul. Now, Blade and Soul, basically what kind of happened is, there's a few reasons, and this is what happens with a lot of Japanese and Korean games. Basically, it took too long to come to the West, even though it's a gorgeous game. Oh my god, Hyungtae Kim, the art, I love their art in every game that they touch, but Blade and Soul is such a sexy game. I love my character inside of Blade and Soul. I do have a max level Berserker character in Blade and Soul, and it was fun to play the arenas a little bit, but the latency was awkward. It was fun to do the endgame dungeons, which are intense and fast-paced, just like the PvP PvP, but also the optimization and the latency is an issue. It's an old game in Unreal Engine 3, and then also it's built for Korea, which means that they kind of don't care about long distance stuff. And this is a game that you really need good ping to play with. So if you're not right next to the server, and if you don't have a beast of a PC, this game kind of is unplayable, even though it is old, and because it's old, you also kind of feel the datedness, even when it was brand new. Also, it's a weird game, you know, it's not a Holy Trinity game exactly, you know, and it's wuxia, it's like kung fu, so Blade and Soul, it hits a lot of weird notes, definitely, but at the same time, it should have been way, way, way more popular, and it kind of was, but then there's also like some pay-to-win elements in parts of the game, so... Oh man, it's such a cool game. It's got so much flavor, and actually, I didn't hate the leveling story. I know it's a cheesy game, dude, it's kung fu, but I kind of liked it. So I did like Blade and Soul. That's why it's a falling from grace list, but at the same time, they should have had an engine update much sooner, much quicker. I guess they didn't care. I wish they supported or promoted the esports scene in the West. In fact, when I was covering this game, I had a sponsorship for them. They made me remove a section where I said, oh, Blade and Soul is an esport. It is an esport in Korea. It's a big 1v1 and 2v2 game. It's basically a fighting game, but in the West, they don't really want to market it like that. So they literally told me not to do that. I think that was a mistake. Look, play to your strengths. People want to play games like this. There's an entire slew of a brand new genre of games just like that. Dude, Blade and Soul, come on. Anyways, so I think there was definitely some production or promotion and publishing stuff and things that happened with Blade and Soul to the West, and basically it's just like, yeah, it's big, it's one of those games like Dungeon Fighter or whatever. It's a Korean game, it makes sense in Korea, it didn't make sense for the rest of the world, but I'm glad I got to play it, and I still think it's kind of worth checking out, for sure. But yeah, of course, being dated and the optimization, it's like, it's really hard to recommend to just everyone, but it is a pretty game if you can get it to run great. And halfway on the list, I have RuneScape 3. Now, RuneScape 3 used to just be RuneScape. So basically, they had the oldest version of RuneScape, and then they updated that. They came out with the RuneScape, or I guess what we know as old school RuneScape. And then they had RuneScape 3, which is a graphical overhaul. And then they also added in an evolution of combat update. So yeah, okay, I think we know the story of that. But RuneScape 3 also added in a lot of microtransactions. They changed the leveling as well. So the game actually has a totally different kind of feel and vibe to it from the original OG old school RuneScape. The world looks different, and I think in a lot of ways it's objectively better. I like the graphics better. I like the questing in terms of like the cinematics and stuff like that. But the charm, the quick witty quest text, and just the simplicity of the design of old school RuneScape is there's something magical about it. Maybe nostalgia plays a little bit into it, but RuneScape 3, I basically don't play it because I just don't like the modern gamification, the monetizations, and you know, all that stuff is kind of bullcrap to me. But I actually heard that the end game bossing is pretty interesting, and if they keep updating and expanding RuneScape 3 and promoting it as if it's kind of like a parallel to something like Final Fantasy 14 or World of Warcraft, what you can play on mobile devices, then I think that'd be really awesome, and I think the game could actually come back. But for the most part, it's gonna, I think, always live in the shadow of old school RuneScape. Old school RuneScape is just untouchable. Old school RuneScape is where they have the literal competitive MMO game modes. There's competitive servers now, fresh start servers. They have like the Deadman like battle royale modes. They have PvP tournaments in general. This is, you know, old school RuneScape is the one that mostly people stream and play and love and have known for all their lives. So that's pretty much it. RuneScape 3 is still popular and good, but it literally fell from grace because the classic version that it came from is the one that's actually more popular. It's a literal falling from grace. But I think, you know, it could come back. I just don't believe it will because there is that branching of mentalities with, oh, we have old school RuneScape. If you want that kind of experience, you go play that. And number 2 is TERA. So being a YouTuber, I mean, I'm somewhat professional and known. We're about to hit 100K. Remember to subscribe. I do actually get invited to a lot of MMO stuff and things. So whenever I go to these things, and it is like, you know, other MMO YouTubers, there's always a game people talk about, and that's TERA. TERA is such a weird game, but it just undeniably had a pretty sweet combat system. And it still kind of does. You know, it still is a unique MMO that has an action RPG system that I really want to see in more games. But basically, so I actually did get an endgame character. I played the Lancer, I played the tank class. I don't know how it is for other classes, but for me, it felt kind of Dark Soulsian. It felt like legit. It felt like tanking was genuinely fun. It almost felt like I could actually 1v1 bosses if I was good enough. I really appreciated it. But there was a lot of weird stuff with the endgame, and the leveling sucked. I hated the leveling, so let's just say that. Leveling was kind of boring, and I don't know how classic was. I actually didn't play when this game first launched, but I heard it was a lot better. And PvP, I don't even know how to do PvP. There's a lot of complicated, weird UI, like the UI sucks, and it's just kind of a pain to play this game. Again, like Blade and Soul, this is an Unreal Engine 3 game, and it runs like dog shit. And so that's even going to be in dungeons, which this game is supposedly excelling at. But to even run the dungeons, you need like all these special like socketed gems and other bullshit. You got to make sure you have all the right gear, which is similar to, you know, Final Fantasy and stuff like that. Yeah, that makes sense. But TERA, dude, TERA's endgame will beat the shit out of you. There's videos of pro players just getting slapped, and they're laughing because it's fun, and it is fun. But I gotta say, like, the grind and the debatable, like, the way the cash shop kind of interacts with everything, it just kind of is like a little bit of a slog. And honestly, like, that tied in with the annoyance of the performance of the game and just how gamey it is. It's a very arcade game. I don't know, it just doesn't have that life or color or character that I want in an MMO, which is why I play Runescape, or I'll play Planetside 2, which is more straightforward. Yeah, I think TERA is too complicated, and I think that they have all these weird, complicated, grindy systems, something that people really don't like in modern WoW, and it's just kind of, you know, and it ties into the cash shop, and it's kind of gross. It's just really kind of a gross game that if it had an engine update, and it had like this pass of maybe like, you know, like a graphical upgrade so everything looks a little bit cleaner, and maybe they kind of reiterated the game so that it was more fair and fun and more easy to get into, then I think people would really be able to appreciate that epic, hardcore, big-ass monster fighting endgame. But dude, oh my god, leveling sucks, the game is a slog, it's really awkwardly complex, again, and yeah, no, if TERA was a dungeon diver, actually it would be pretty legit. So anyways, in terms of action combat, in terms of like a proper MMO and doing dungeons, it's the best. It's the best. And yet, at the same time, as a whole MMO experience, kind of sucks. And it's really hard to keep playing it. It's really hard to get into it at all. And I totally see why people, you know, leave it and it's not that popular anymore. It's a game that fell from grace. But I know a lot of people loved TERA and they want to see a game like TERA, or maybe a TERA 2 or something, or just TERA being updated once again. And now the #1 free MMO that fell from grace is Archeage. And I don't even need to say too much about it, but I will actually kind of elaborate a little bit on my experience with Archeage. I didn't play too much of it, I didn't go too deep into it. I mostly had like an early first impressions of it, and I had a genuinely awesome time. But then you watch the videos of like, oh, this is why you shouldn't play the game. You know, it's pay to win, it's this and that. And those things get to me. And a lot of people would say, oh, you shouldn't listen to other people. Dude, I'm gonna listen to other people if it means hundreds of hours of my life being saved. Archeage is a game that was objectively pay to win, and then also, what even was the end game? I wanted to, you know, have a house, I wanted to PvP, I wanted to do a lot of things that the pay to win would directly interact with. No, I'm not going to do that. So basically, so Tryon actually, they had a bunch of awesome MMO, and they floundered all of them. Even Trove, which was a really safe bet, and I still do promote that game, Trove, they totally changed it so that they could, you know, get more money from it. And I don't know, I guess you could debate that's pay to win now, maybe in a way, but yeah, Archeage basically, it was a PvP game, that open world PvP game that, yeah, you know, they made it pay to win in ways. So that kind of sucked. And a lot of people hated it, they left it, you know, the publishing sucked. But then they tried to do fresh start servers, they try to rebrand it, republish it in a way. And yeah, so basically, clean and clear, it fell from grace because recently we actually had a buy-to-play version. And that totally superseded the free-to-play version, or it was supposed to. Like, everyone's like, oh, this is it. Finally, we get the Archeage that we want. Archeage could have been right up there with Final Fantasy XIV, or at least RuneScape, in terms of popularity. But no, even the buy-to-play version, totally squandered. That was really just kind of a cash grab and a Hail Mary. and in the end it wasn't even properly balanced. So Archeage had so many epic, unique ideas in terms of a living, breathing world, and I genuinely loved the quests, at least at the beginning of the game, and I liked the idea of the mixing and matching classes. We haven't had that since like Final Fantasy XI, kind of, or like Guild Wars 2, which isn't an MMO. We normally don't get this in MMOs. So Archeage could have been so hypoo, especially because it wasn't too far departed from the mechanics of something like World of Warcraft, being a faction versus faction open world PvP game. There was supposed to be pirating and, you know, like castle sieges, and in the end, I think greed and laziness just totally corrupted Archeage. And again, that's not, I haven't played too deep. Like every other game I played a little bit deeper. No, Archeage I didn't, and I know for a fact I saved some time and money for sure. But for those who went really hard on Archeage, let me know your awesome stories. Let me know the awesome time that you had. And, you know, is it worth going back into now? Either way, the traction of this game completely, like, it was so hype. It was so viral. Minecraft YouTubers were covering this game. And then now what? Nobody talks about it. How disgraceful. But that's it, guys. My top 5 free MMO that fell from grace. Yeah, I know I played them. I had my time. It was cool, but, you know, I got out while I could. Or, you know, maybe now I think I want to play a little bit more Planetside 2. I will admit that. And I do want to play more Runescape, but I'm going to play old school Runescape. So what other games do you think have fallen from grace? Or maybe I should do a list of MMO that were dead on arrival. You know, I think it's cool. You could do some top list videos that are negative and toxic, as long as we're all having fun with it and we're being, you know, critical about it. And we're trying to show new players, especially those new to the genre, where they should go. So yeah, I do actually recommend Planetside 2, but otherwise, you should be going to old school RuneScape, and you should be playing the tried and true games like Guild Wars 2 is really fun. Go play that, even though that kind of fell from grace a little bit. World of Warcraft is hopefully reclaiming the throne with the new expansion, but the thing is, there's not infinite MMOs, guys, you know? So the ones that actually do something good, let's champion it. Let's play those games as a community, and the ones that kind of, you know, shit on us as players, well, we shouldn't like just stick with that game just because that's what we've known and that's what we've played. So let's try to remove our biases. Let's have a fun dialogue in the comments below. I'm sure it's going to be friendly. But yeah, guys, these were the MMO that fell from grace. Thought it'd be a fun little review video, just to kind of spit it out. What do you guys think? Let me know. But much love. I'll see you in the next one.